You guys are both incredible worship leaders and songwriters, but we are here today to talk about, Hannah, your first ever solo project, Sundown. Tell me, how did this whole thing come about?
Yes, I actually can't believe we're having this conversation right now. But,
I'm glad we are, by the way.
But basically, yeah, it was really back in 2019. I mean, I love to write songs. I love to write songs for the local church. And back in 2019, I kind of felt stirred that it was time to make a decision to I'd always written songs, but to carve out even just additional space to really dig into that skill of songwriting. And so the short story is I probably bugged Ben to the full extent, chasing him and asking him to write with me because obviously Ben's written so many amazing songs, but really deep down the heart of it was like, I wanted to grow in that gift of writing songs for the church. I wanted to learn more. And I knew that there was just so much more to be discovered. There's so many songs still to be written. And so I kind of, I guess, had this like fire in my belly that it was time to just go after it and be as diligent as I could be with it. And so after, like I said, maybe bugging you a little bit more than the average person, we just started writing songs. I think songs for our church and songs all over the place, lots of different songs. And I wouldn't even know how many, maybe like over those years, 2020, 21, maybe like there were, who knows, 40, 50 songs or something that we'd at least had started. But it wasn't really for a project. It was really more about just trying to write the kind of songs that would connect with people, that would serve people in their worship. And I've always been really captivated with when a song comes through our church or the church across the world, and there's really nothing like it, where it just brings people onto the same page. It unifies the church, and often it breathes life into services and into people's lives. And so I kind of felt like, I wonder if I could discover how to do that kind of writing as well, because I want to see God move in our church, and I've been so ministered to in the past with those kind of songs. And so basically, it was just some kind of chase to write this song that would hopefully be a blessing to people. And the cool thing about, I guess, writing songs for church is you can try them and see what resonates in church. Sometimes you try songs and it's like, okay, that was kind of okay. Sometimes you walk away, and I think one song in particular that we had worked on was called Never Walk Alone. I personally felt like it was a good song, but I didn't feel like it was the better of all the songs we had. But we tried it at a team night one Thursday night, and I don't know, it was pretty crazy. We just kind of looked at each other like, people are really singing this, and I did not expect that. And so, it just started, I guess, this snowballing of trying to chase after the kind of songs that would glorify God and hopefully resonate with people. And that's kind of what the pursuit was. It was never meant to be like an album. It was more to do with just being diligent and stewarding the gift well. And then after a couple of years, there was, I guess, a leftover amount of songs that we still really loved. And it felt like it was a good time to just have a night of worship.
Have a night of worship. And so here we are, and we have this project that is titled Sundown. Yeah. Tell me, how did you arrive at that name? What does that mean?
Okay, well, the cool thing about this worship night, a live worship night that we did, this record is a live album, is we basically just invited 120 people into a room within our church, and it was around about when the sun was going down on that day, and we shared communion together, we shared a meal together, and we prayed, and then all filed into this like small room in our church, and basically for just an hour or two worship God as the sun was going down. And I was kind of looking for some kind of banner or title to put over the project in the months following. I loved the idea of the golden hour. Like, it's my favorite time of day. I love the idea of like the sun's going down, and it reminds me of God as well.
That's when Ben gets his best selfies, right?
Most of the
golden hour.
Golden hour light.
Yeah.
But I was talking to a friend of mine who is a Bible theologian, and I was saying to her, you know, I can't shake this idea of the golden hour. And she has spent some time living in Israel and talked about when the sun goes down, all of the city kind of turns to this shimmery golden color. And in fact, in Jewish culture, when sundown starts on a Friday, that signifies the beginning of the Sabbath for them. And so from sundown on a Friday to sundown on a Saturday, everyone turns everything off. They stop working and they rest and worship and live in community and before God, basically seek out a Sabbath day with him. And to me, suddenly it started to kind of land. It was like sundown represents us getting away with God and us worshiping and kind of eliminating distractions and kind of like what we were doing on that night, 120 people in a room, just seeking after God. And that's kind of my prayer and hope for this project, that people will go driving in their cars, they'll put on this worship music, and nothing about it is perfect, but hopefully there's a sense of the presence of God and his anointing on it, and that I really pray it would minister to people and refresh people and cause them to have their own kind of Sabbath sundown experience wherever they find themselves listening to it.
I love that. And Ben, you get a chance to tell your side of the story. So Hannah just tries to wear you down to write with her. How was the process for you, I guess, supporting and writing this project with Hannah?
Yeah, well, I didn't feel firstly like you were harassing me. I felt honoured to be able to be asked, and we've written together over the years, but it did feel like this sort of last couple of years, like Hannah was so intentional, and I found that to be quite inspiring. And so yeah, we were writing, and it was amazing. It was a crazy couple of years that we were trying to write through. Like it was right in the middle of the COVID sort of pandemic, and so there were opportunities where we could be in the same room, but a lot of it was over Zoom,
yes,
which we never knew existed before 2019, 2020.
And we do now, don't we?
Yeah, and we were kind of just finding those opportunities, but we felt like there were things that we felt stirred to write, and then we felt like we had the time to kind of go back and refine things and pull different sections out of songs and sort of put together kind of Frankenstein songs of all different bits of other songs. And I think in the process, I think the result is something really incredible. And that night where we all came together and to hear the songs in the room was really special. And I thought Hannah just did an incredible job in pulling it all together. But also it was kind of cool to see her gift as a worship leader and pulling something like that together. And the night itself was powerful, but hopefully what's captured also kind of communicates what God was doing on that night.
Yeah, I think what is so special about this album, it was recorded live in the studio. Yeah. So, you've got your studio album and a live, they're two different things. We won't go into that right now. But this is a live album recorded in a studio, and there is that sense of actually encouraging, drawing people into worship. And I think of the song Like Honey, and I love the way that you're not just playing and recording it, you're actually encouraging people, you're inviting them into this opportunity to connect with God. And I really love the imagery of some of those lyrics. Do you want to kind of maybe share a bit of, the heart behind that song and what that means?
Yeah, I mean, probably one of my favorite parts of that song is the bridge, which says I will see the goodness of the Lord my God, and I believe the greater things are yet to come. And then it goes, I'll pray until I see it. I know I'm going to see it. And for us, I think obviously across the world, everyone's been through this wild couple of years. And to me, the bridge feels kind of prophetic. Like it's a song that we can sing about what's yet to come. And it puts words, in a sense, to a prophecy that we can't quite see yet. But we're going to keep singing and keep believing and keep worshiping until that thing comes to pass. And I think one of the great joys of getting to lead worship, as you guys know, is you get to look into the eyes of the people of our church. So I looked around that night and I see people who, one of my close friends, was getting married and ended up having to get married on Zoom during those 2 years. Life didn't quite pan out how she thought. And other friends who have been through great loss and just unimaginable challenges. And so you're singing that song and watching people who have been through these incredibly challenging situations, but yet still so hungry to sing something out and prophesy something over their future. And so, yeah, I think for that song, that prophetic edge for me is what kind of gets me really excited.
Yeah. I love that you can see it unfolding as it's happening, which is what I think is pretty special. And the song Yes He Lives. Now, I love you're talking about your heart, that you wrote these songs for the church and you wrote these songs to be able to help people encounter God. And I'm grateful because in our church, we've seen that song be so helpful in services. And what I love is actually just practically the versatility of that song. I've seen that it's really useful as song one. You can start a service, but it also is incredibly useful as the final song of a set. Maybe from your point of view, how do you feel like that song can practically be used in a church service, or for a worship leader who might be wanting to, use that to lead people in worship?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a celebration of the resurrection of Christ, and it almost feels like an Easter song to me. But anything that's a little upbeat is kind of nice. Like, I'm not saying it's super fast, but it's got an energy to it, and there's a sense of, even just in the music alone, this like victorious feeling to the song. And again, in a faith-stirring way, I think there's something cool about that. The song starts, people are clapping their hands, and like there's this sense of expectation in the church. And so, yeah, I think it can, like you said, I've definitely used that song as to start a service before or end a service. And I don't know if you have any thoughts, but it feels like very much like a celebration of the risen Christ. And I don't know what better thing we can
we
sing
did
that.
write it around Easter time, and we were kind of thinking this is going to be a great Resurrection Sunday song. We used it for Easter, and it was cool. But it is, you're reminded, like when you do it now, like obviously not during the Easter season, like how central the resurrection of Jesus is. And like, I think this song, it kind of tells the story in sort of narrative form, but it does feel really, I don't know, it feels really faith building as well in a room. And I think it's really versatile.
Yeah.
Like I've heard girls lead it great.
Yes.
I've heard boys lead it great. I've heard men lead it, women, young and old.
Yeah, I love that. I think it has been and is extremely helpful when really as a tool to be able to help us do what we want to do, which is connect people with God. Think about the song Broken into Beautiful. And that song to me just has a real depth and weightiness. I'd love to kind of hear where that came from and maybe why you wrote that. Either of you, both of you.
Yeah, I mean, we were actually writing a completely different song. I think in the bridge was the thing that really kind of it lived on, didn't it? Like and that rest of that song kind of ended up dying. But it was how does the bridge lyrics start?
There's everywhere you go.
No, that's the other song.
Oh wait.
Broken into Beautiful is the. Oh no, you're right.
Yeah.
What am I doing?
That was a test, and you
That was a
passed.
test. I did question myself for a second.
Because I was thinking of the I'll see your goodness. But yeah, there's goodness everywhere you go. So the bridge starts about talking about the goodness of God, but it's sort of based on Joel 2, that God will restore what the locusts have stolen. This idea that there's years that have passed where we've been waiting on to see the faithfulness of God.
Yeah.
And it might feel at times like those years are lost, but that God kind of sees it and he restores it. And in Joel 2, just before God makes that promise, he says, if you would return to me. And so I love that posture that like we would return to God and then see him fulfill his side of the promise. And then when we started kind of trying to rewrite the song, Isaiah 61 really became a central part of the theme of the song, which I think is kind of saying something similar, that he will bring beauty from ashes, that he'll restore ancient ruins. And so that sort of became like the verse and the chorus of the song. And I think it's just really hopeful about what God is going to do.
Yeah. It's just like, that song to me is like so special to sing with our church, because from the very first line, like it starts with, Lord, you're restoring the ancient ruins. You are rebuilding a holy nation for your great name. And I think like so many people are carrying this brokenness through different circumstances and things that they're kind of grappling with. And to just, I think the start of the song instantly reminds us and puts things into context. Like he's restoring us and he's rebuilding us, but it's not just so that we can be great. It's so that his name can be glorified. And I think there's something really special about that. It's almost like the first line of the song, we're all just, oh yeah, that's right. That's what this is. Yeah. That's what's happening here. And it's not that it dismisses challenges and circumstantial things that are very difficult, but it just puts them in light of God.
Yeah.
And that changes things. You can feel the room kind of shift a little bit. And so I feel like that song has been really special.
Yeah, I love that. The prophetic, obviously comes from the prophet Joel, that prophetic side that also brings faith and encouragement. And I think, again, which I love, when you talk about what your heart was for this project and these songs. And I guess I've been blessed to be the recipient in church to be able to sing them and how much they do build faith. I want to ask about give thanks, which I think is a great thing to do on all occasions. And obviously it's something that Scripture is pretty clear on. How did that song come about?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think it was initially like a melody idea that
For the chorus.
the chorus. And
That's
I
really
remember standing with Ben and saying, I think I had this idea, and maybe playing it to you from my
I think
voice
when you
memo.
first showed me, you sung it. We were kind of by the side of stage,
Yeah.
and there was music and stuff going. But Hannah just sung the chorus, and I was like, "Oh, that's really good." Like it was so strong with no musical accompaniment or whatever. And the other thing with the Grammy was just the theme. Like I was like, how much do we need songs about just being thankful
Thanksgiving,
to
yeah.
God? And so that I think that's how it started.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because I think almost with all of these songs, nothing has necessarily just been fully formed on the day. Like there's just been like a concept or an idea that feels really kind of weighty. And then a lot of chipping away, writing, rewriting, and trying to work things over until it feels like this is really going to work well. And this feels like there's nothing distracting in the way, but it's still kind of captivating enough that it captures people's attention and stirs people. So that song has been really cool. I remember the first time we tried it in church and being like, ooh, this could be good or bad, I don't know. But then watching the church just grab onto the chorus straight away. It's pretty simple, but in my little bit of study I've done around giving thanks, or what the Bible says about giving thanks, one of the aspects of it that I find kind of intriguing is the idea that thanksgiving is acknowledging what is right about God.
Yeah.
So when I give thanks, I don't just say, oh, thanks, like thanks for everything, but it's a gratitude and remembrance of how he is righteous and holy and high above. So when we give thanks, we acknowledge the fullness of who God is. And again, in our worship, I think what a powerful thing to do, to just be constantly, I don't know about everyone else, but for me, I feel like my human nature is constantly dragging me off course. And I'm constantly trying to remind myself, like, oh, just remember who you are. Like, remember who God is. You're constantly trying to remind your soul. And I hope that this song kind of serves as a constant reminder for people. It is pretty repetitive too. So if they don't get it the first time round,
They'll get it
it'll
the
come
second.
again.
But there's something powerful about gratitude. I think like the scriptures, Psalms talk about thankfulness making a way, like into the presence of God. And I think about 2 Chronicles 20, where the people of God are faced by surrounding armies, and Jehoshaphat assembles the musicians and he says, go out in front of the army, sing and give thanks to the Lord. His love endures forever. And that picture, like, I mean, you'd kind of think in a practical sense, if you want to lose a battle, send musicians out first. But the power of like gratitude and confessing thankfulness to God for who he is and for what he does. And I think about that then in our meetings when we come together as the people of God and from all our different disparate kind of backgrounds and what we're facing in life, but to be able to confess that together and just believe that it'll make a way for us, but perhaps more importantly for the presence of God to go before us.
Yeah. No, I love that. And, I do think I love the specialness of this recording. Again, we've talked about it, but it is live, but it is in a studio and it is quite intimate, but yet it's this invitation and call for people to worship and declare God's truth. And I think it sounds great. I think it looks great. But from your point of view, how would you desire people to interact with these songs and this project?
I mean, again, I just come back to that idea of like people driving in their cars, walking with their AirPods in and just carving out space to be with God and to worship him and to set time aside to kind of remember again the goodness of God. And so I hope it is almost like it serves as that like devotional experience for people, like almost like an open door for people to remember the goodness of God and remember his faithfulness. And so I don't know, I've dreamed about it being the type of thing people play in their homes and play over their kids as they're falling asleep maybe, and just like that it's like a reset for people and a reminder of how important it is to worship. Again, our human nature just constantly tends to go the wrong way. And worship for me has always been such a lifeline and a watering hole, a place where I can go and it kind of resets me and reminds me to to lift my eyes to God. And so my deep down hope is that this little project would serve as that for people, that they would listen and they would take a moment to go and be in the presence of God and get on their knees if they need to, or lie down on their face, whatever it might be, but get into God and worship him. And I guess another facet to my prayer for the project too is that it would just, hopefully there would be simple and easy to sing along to songs that people can sing in their churches. And I just feel so grateful that over the years, as I've kind of grown up in church, that there's just been these moments where you hear a song that you've never heard before for the first time. And it's like, oh, that is definitely articulates what I would love to say to God. That's something that I've been thinking about. And I've been such a recipient of these beautiful worship songs that have course corrected me and helped me just grow in my love and affection for God. And so I hope in a way that this would serve and be that for other people.
I love that. And I want to say thank you to both of you guys on what I think is a very well done project. And I know that's been the case for me so far and our church, and really believing for every single one of you that it will be something that encourages you and can practically help also as we are on this journey of leading our churches in worship. So thanks so much for being a part of this little chat.